am going to tell you a story that changed everything. A story about the moment I realized blood does not always mean family and money does not always mean wealth. This is about the day my parents watched me die slowly and did nothing. This is about the brother who had nothing but gave me everything. And this is about what I did when I finally stopped being the daughter they could ignore. I was lying on a hospital bed when the doctor used the word that makes time stop. Terminal. Not maybe. Not if we are lucky. Terminal. The kind of word that does not leave room for hope unless you act fast. My hands were shaking when I reached for my phone. My body felt wrong, like it was betraying me from the inside. The diagnosis had come fast. Too fast. One day I was fine. The next, I was sitting in a cold room being told I had months, maybe weeks, unless I got treatment immediately. The treatment existed. It was not experimental. It was not a gamble. It was proven, effective, life-saving. The problem was not the medicine. The problem was the price. The kind of number that makes your throat close. The kind that insurance companies find reasons not to cover. The kind that separates people who live from people who do not. I called my father first. My mother picked up the extension like she always did when things got serious. I explained everything the way the doctor had explained it to me. Calm, clinical. I told them the timeline. I told them the cost. I told them I would pay them back. I told them I just needed help now. There was silence. Then my father cleared his throat. He used the voice he always used when he was about to say no but wanted to sound reasonable. "Sweetheart," he said, "we just put a down payment on the lake house. This is not a good time. The renovations are expensive, you understand." I did not say anything. I could not. My mother jumped in quickly, her voice soft and concerned in that way that makes cruelty sound like care. "Honey, maybe this is a sign. You have always been so independent. Maybe you are supposed to figure this out on your own. It will build character." Then I heard my sister in the background. She laughed, not nervously, not uncomfortably. She laughed like someone had told a joke. "She is always so dramatic," my sister said loudly enough for me to hear. "She will figure it out. She always does." I looked down at the hospital bracelet on my wrist. My name was printed there in block letters, but I felt like I was disappearing. "I understand," I said. And I did. Completely. I hung up and sat there in the silence of that sterile room. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just felt something inside me go cold and clear. I had spent my entire life being the responsible one, the one who did not ask for help, the one who made it easy for everyone else. And now, when I needed them most, they were renovating a lake house. That night, I stared at the ceiling and ran through every option I had. Credit cards maxed out. Savings drained from an emergency 6 months ago when my car broke down. No spouse, no kids, no trust fund. Just me and a diagnosis that did not care how hard I had worked or how much I had sacrificed. I thought about charity programs, fundraisers, crowdfunding. I thought about selling everything I owned. I did the math over and over and it never added up. Even if I liquidated my entire life, it would not be enough. Not even close. 2 days later, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it and my brother was standing there. He looked exhausted. His jacket was old and stained, his boots were falling apart. He worked construction, long hours, low pay. He lived in a basement apartment with 2 roommates and drove a truck that barely started. He looked at me, and I saw it in his eyes. He already knew. "How much do you need?" he asked. I told him. His face did not change. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. Inside was cash. Worn bills, 10s and 20s, counted and recounted. "This is everything," he said. "I sold my truck. I sold my tools. I borrowed some from a guy at work. It is not all of it, but it is a start." I stared at the money. "This is how you get to work," I said. "I will figure it out," he replied. "You are not dying because they bought a house. I took the money. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. Because my brother, who had nothing, was the only person who showed up. And because in that moment, I realized something I should have seen years ago. My parents had everything. My brother had nothing, and only one of them loved me. That night, I made a list. Not of what I needed, of what I remembered. Every moment I had explained away. Every time I had been told I was too much or not enough. Every dollar my sister had been handed while I was given lectures about responsibility. I wrote it all down. And then I started planning. The treatment began a week later. It was brutal. The kind of brutal that makes you wonder if surviving is worth it. But I did survive. And while I was healing, I was also learning. Learning things about my parents they did not know I could see. Learning things about money and power and control. Learning how to take everything they thought was untouchable and make it mine. They had refused to save me, so I decided I would save myself. And when I was done, they would understand exactly what they had lost. Recovery was not gentle. The treatment left me hollow, shaking, barely able to stand some days. But I stood anyway. I had to. Because while my body was fighting to stay alive, my mind was fighting for something else. Control. I started digging. Not with a shovel, but with documents, public records, financial filings, credit reports, the kind of information people think is private but is not if you know where to look. And I did. I had time, anger, and nothing left to lose. That combination makes you dangerous. What I found was almost funny. Almost. My parents were not rich. They were performing. The lake house they had chosen over my life was mortgaged to the ceiling, the cars leased, the retirement accounts nearly empty. My sister's business, the one they were so proud of, was bleeding money faster than they could pour it in. They were drowning in debt, smiling for the cameras, and telling me they could not help because of renovations. But it got better. Or worse, depending on how you looked at it. My father had taken loans he should not have, the kind with terms he did not read and interest rates that compounded daily. My mother had co-signed on things she did not understand. Together, they had built a house of cards so fragile that one strong wind would collapse it. I could have walked away. I could have taken my brother's money, survived, and never looked back. But I did not, because they needed to know what it felt like to be abandoned when you were dying. I called a lawyer, not a local one, a real one, the kind you see in glass towers with views that cost more than most people make in a year. I walked into his office, still thin from treatment, still pale but steady. I laid out everything I had found. I told him what I wanted. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and studied me. "This will not be easy," he said. "It will take time. It will cost money you do not have." "I know," I said, "but I have something better. I have their signature on documents they did not read." He smiled. "Then we have a case." The plan was simple. Buy their debt. All of it. Piece by piece, quietly, through shell companies and intermediaries. Become the person they owed everything to without them ever knowing it was me. And then, when the time was right, I would foreclose. Not on the house, on their entire lives. It took 6 months. 6 months of phone calls and paperwork and late nights staring at spreadsheets. 6 months of watching my brother work himself to exhaustion while my parents posted vacation photos online. 6 months of feeling my body get stronger while their foundation crumbled. And then it was done. I owned everything. The house, the cars, the loans, the business. I was the bank now. And they had no idea. I did not tell them right away. I wanted them to feel safe first. I wanted them to believe they had won. So I waited. I let them renovate the lake house. I let them buy new furniture. I let my sister launch another doomed venture with their money, my money, and smile for the press. Then I called a meeting. I did not go myself. I sent a representative, a polite man in a suit who looked like every other corporate messenger they had ever ignored. He sat them down in their own dining room and explained that their loans had been restructured. New terms, new conditions, new ownership. My father barely looked at the papers. He signed. My mother asked a few questions, but only about payment schedules, not about who they were paying. My sister was not even there. She was too busy spending money that no longer existed. When the representative left, my parents felt relieved. They thought they had dodged a bullet. They had no idea they had just signed their lives over to me. The first payment came due 30 days later. They missed it, not on purpose. They just forgot. They were busy, they had plans. They assumed there would be grace periods and second chances because there always had been. There were not. At 12:01 a.m. on day 31, I foreclosed. By 8 a.m., notices were filed. By noon, locks were changed. By evening, my parents were standing on the lawn of a house they no longer owned, holding bags they had packed in a panic, staring at a door that would not open. My mother called me. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. She was crying, confused, angry. She said words like mistake and family and how could you? She never said I am sorry. My father called next. He did not cry, he yelled. He threatened lawyers and lawsuits and public humiliation. He said I would regret this. He said I was cruel. He said I was ungrateful. I listened to the whole message, then I deleted it. My sister tried a different approach. She showed up at my apartment with tears in her eyes and apologies on her lips. She said she did not know. She said they were trying their best. She said I was destroying the family. I opened the door just wide enough to see her face. "You mean the family that let me die?" I asked. She did not have an answer. I closed the door. The next day, I got a call from my lawyer. "Your parents are asking questions," he said. "They want to know who bought the debt. They want to meet." "Set it up," I said. The meeting happened in a conference room downtown. My parents arrived together, dressed like they were going to court. My father looked older than I remembered. My mother looked small. My sister was not there. She had already started distancing herself, posting vague things online about new beginnings and letting go. I was already seated when they walked in. For a second, they did not recognize me. I had gained weight back. My hair had grown. I looked healthy. I looked strong. Then my mother gasped. My father froze. "Hello," I said. "Mom." "Dad." My father found his voice first. "What is this? What are you doing here?" "I am the one you have been paying," I said, "or trying to. I own your debt. I own your house. I own everything you thought was yours." My mother started crying immediately. My father turned red. "This is insane," he said. "This is illegal." I slid the contracts across the table. "You signed these?" I said. "Every page, every clause. You just did not bother to read them." My father looked at the papers, then at me. His mouth opened and closed. He tried to find words that would undo what had already been done. My mother reached across the table. "Please," she said. "We are your parents." I pulled my hand back. "You were my parents," I said, "until I needed you. Then you were investors in a lake house." The room went silent. I stood up. "You have 30 days to vacate," I said. "After that, you will be removed." I walked out without looking back. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. I pulled out my phone and called my brother. "It is done," I said. He did not ask what I meant. He already knew. "Are you okay?" he asked. I thought about it. I thought about the girl who had begged for help and been told no. I thought about the woman who had stopped begging and started taking. "I am," I said. "I really am." That night, I stood in the house that used to be theirs. It was empty now. Quiet. The furniture was gone. The photos were gone. All that was left were walls and echoes. I walked through every room slowly. I stood in the kitchen where I had been told I was too much. I stood in the living room where I had been told to figure it out. I stood in the doorway where I had been laughed at for being dramatic. And then I locked the door and left. I gave the house to my brother, not to sell, to live in. "You gave me everything when I had nothing," I told him. "Now you have everything." He cried. I did not. I had already cried enough. People ask me if I regret it, if I went too far, if I should have forgiven them. I do not answer anymore, because the question is wrong. The question is not whether I went too far. The question is, how far would you go to survive when the people who were supposed to save you chose a vacation home instead? I do not know where my parents are now. I do not ask. I do not care. They made a choice. I made one too. Mine just had better lawyers. My brother runs his own business now. He hired 3 people last month. He bought a new truck. He smiles more. And every time I see him, I am reminded that family is not who shares your blood. It is who shares your burden. I am healthy now. Fully recovered, the treatment worked, I survived, and I did it without them. So if you are out there and you are the one everyone depends on, the one who always figures it out, the one who gets nothing while others get everything, I want you to hear this. You do not owe anyone your suffering. Not your parents, not your siblings, not anyone. Survival is not selfish. Boundaries are not betrayal. And sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to stop saving people who would watch you drown. I stopped saving them. And I have never been stronger. If this story made you feel something, leave a comment. Tell me where you are listening from. Tell me your story. Because I know I am not the only one who had to choose between being loved and being alive. And I will always choose alive. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories about people who stopped being victims and started being survivors. Stories about justice, revenge, and what happens when the underestimated stop playing nice. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are not alone.